right, take it away, Chris.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. We thank you for coming out, taking time out of your weekend to be here with us this morning for our sleep presentation. First, we're just going to start with some very brief introductions. My name is Chris Williams. I'm a licensed acupuncturist in the state of Tennessee, working here at Moore Road Medi-Spa. Absolutely love acupuncture. One of my favorite sayings is, we treat the body, we treat the person, we don't treat symptoms or disease. That allows our focus to be on every individual. Besides the actual act of treating, I absolutely love encouraging patients to take a more active role in their healing process and really enjoy encouraging people to make small changes, which can really make big differences in their lives.
I'm Michael P. Koo. My passion is to rid the world of stress and pain one person at a time. And I'm a massage therapist here at Moore Road Medi-Spa, and I specialize in working with people with low back pain, high stress, and high anxiety that want to manage that pain or stress on a regular basis so they can function better, think clearer, and really just simply enjoy life. So another way to kind of share that passion is to give people information that can help them enjoy life. And so sleep's really an important part of enjoying life and having a healthier life. And a lot of times we think, sleep's just one of those things, but it's actually overlooked by so many people in so many different areas of our life. For instance, we think, I want to be more productive. So the question comes up, how can I multitask better? Or I think, how can I lose weight? So then the question is, well, what kind of diet am I on? What kind of exercise can I do? Or I think, I'm just tired of being sick. I've been sick for 2 weeks. So the question is, what medication can I take? What doctor can I go see? But to be honest, the question you should be asking all of those scenarios is, how is my sleep doing? Because our bodies are capable of so many incredible things, and a lot of times we don't even give it a fighting chance because of what we're doing on our end with our sleep and stuff like that. So today, we're going to share with you some ways that you can help yourself and some ways we can help you get a better night's sleep. Because if you take these things and apply it today, you could see possibly the biggest transformation in your quality of life that you've ever seen before. So Chris is going to get us started off. He's going to share with you some of the regulators of sleep.
Okay, so we're going to cover two of the biggest influences over our sleep cycle. The first one is the circadian rhythm, which a lot of people are familiar with. It's our biological clock. It's innate and intrinsic to our systems, and it has influence over a lot of processes within the body. And it's set to the daytime. The word circadian, circa is around, and dian, day, so around day. And so the reason for this is for the sake of consistency. The day runs 24 hours every day. The sun rises and the sun sets. And so that's a barometer that our internal clock's set to. You notice with newborns, their sleeping patterns are off for the first few months. Usually sleep for a few hours, wake up for a few hours, sleep for a few hours in a repeating cycle. And then it eventually works itself out, and that's because their biological clock is actually setting to the daytime. And we also know this. Researchers have spent time in caves for upwards of a month to kind of observe the influence that it has on us, and they found that the biological clock actually runs longer than 24 hours without sunlight. On average, it's about 24 hours and 15 minutes in people. Then when they leave the caves, the clock resets itself back. It controls numerous processes in the body. As stated earlier, some of those are body temperature. Times that we are hungry can even influence times that we're more alert, and times that our prefrontal cortexes are more active and vigilant. But our focus today is the sleep and wake cycles. And so the way that it does this is through the SCN, which is an abbreviation for the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And so this is a part of the brain that sits in the forehead, just about 2 to 3 inches above the meeting point of our eyebrows. And it sits right on top of the crossing point of our optic nerves. And so what it does is it actually samples light coming through the optic nerves. And from there, it knows whether it's day or it's night. And so it plays an active role in making parts of the body responsible for wakefulness more active, and then at night kind of slowing those processes down. One of the ways it does this is through regulation of the pineal gland's release of melatonin in the body. So at nighttime, the SCN will trigger the pineal gland to release the melatonin. Most people think melatonin is responsible for making us feel tired and sleepy and falling asleep. In actuality, it doesn't. What it does do is signal to the brain that it's nighttime, and so the brain knows that it's time to start winding down for the evening. There is a hormone that's responsible for making us feel sleepy, and that hormone is responsible for the second biggest influencer in our sleep cycle, and that's sleep pressure, which, as the name implies, just means the pressure to fall asleep. It builds throughout the day. And it does this through the release of adenosine. Adenosine is released every moment that we're awake, and as we go through the day, the adenosine levels increase within the body, and they bind to receptors in the brain that make us feel tired and sleepy. We have caffeine in this picture here, because the way that caffeine works is it actually binds to the same receptor sites in the brain as adenosine. And so when it's binded to those sites, the adenosine cannot bind, so we don't feel sleepy. Then as the caffeine exits the body, we get that rush of adenosine in the brain, and that's what makes us feel the crash. And so most people, sleep pressure kind of hits its, I guess, largest point between 12 and 16 hours after being awake, and therefore causes us to sleep.
Now next we're going to hit on the health benefits of sleep, the cardiovascular system, the metabolism, the immune system, along with some of the other health benefits. And so Chris is going to talk to us about the cardiovascular system.
All right, so we're going to start with the cardiovascular system because, quite frankly, this is a huge problem in the United States. Heart disease is responsible for 1 in 4 deaths in the United States, and just through getting more sleep can really benefit us from that perspective. The first is it's a great regulator for our blood pressure as well as our heart rate. And so the reason for this is because of sympathetic nervous system activity. When we don't get enough sleep, researchers have found that our sympathetic nervous systems are more active. And so what that means is this is our fight or flight response, very active process. And so when we don't get enough sleep, they found that cortisol levels are higher, neuroepinephrine levels are higher in the body, and some of the side effects of this are an increase in heart rate as well as a constriction in blood vessels. And so that increases our blood pressure. And so they've done this study with all different groups of people. It didn't matter what the age group was, what their starting blood pressure was. They already exhibited high blood pressure. Just the act of sleeping served as a great regulator for this and helped decrease both of those. Sleep researcher Dr. Matthew Walker has been researching sleep for the past 20 years. He's also been combing through the sleep research over the last half century. So he said, with very few exceptions, every study done that observes the effect of a lack of sleep on the body has observed an overactive sympathetic nervous system. The next way is that sleep can actually reduce atherosclerosis within the body, and so that's the buildup of plaque within our arteries and vessels. researchers have found that the coronary arteries are particularly impacted through the lack of sleep. The reason for this is actually growth hormone. When we sleep, our growth hormone levels increase within the body, and the growth hormone is responsible for repairing the cells and tissues within our body, the vessels being one of those. And so the plaque formation builds in areas where the vessels are damaged. So if we're not sleeping and the vessels are not repairing properly, the calcium deposits in the plaque begin to build up within those vessels. Also makes our vessels weaker, and so they're more susceptible to breaking. And both of those incidences can lead to insufficient blood supply to different parts of the body, the heart being one of those, which can cause heart attack, and that's just a lack of supply of blood to the heart, which kills the tissues. Researchers have also found that after the age of 45, those sleeping, I believe it's 6.5 hours or less, are 200 times more likely to suffer from a stroke or cardiac arrest. And they've done this controlling for other factors such as body mass index, lifestyle factors, diet. They've been able to figure out that it is actually sleep as the causative factor. And so one kind of statistic that really, or not necessarily a statistic, but an observation that hammers home the point of how sleep is important for our cardiovascular systems is they've observed hospital records. So they've come through millions of records to see what happens during the daylight saving switch. So in spring, when we lose an hour, hospitals have observed a huge spike in the number of heart attacks that they observe the day of that switch. And then in fall, when we gain back an hour, the incidence of heart attacks actually plummets within the hospitals.
So next we're going to kind of touch on metabolism. And I've actually get asked a lot being here at the weight loss place, does sleep really affect my weight loss? And the answer is absolutely yes. It affects it in so many different ways. I myself have actually lost weight on Weight Watchers. I lost 80 pounds. After about 10 years, I gained some of that weight back and changed my entire diet and went to a more healthier way of eating to get back to my goal weight. And during both of those processes, I kind of found that when I got tired, my ability to make healthy choices was a lot less. And I really struggled with it. A lot of times I was just like, why is my willpower so low and stuff like that? But what I didn't know at the time was I was actually fighting against my body's natural functions when I was sleep deprived. So the main function of sleep is to repair our central nervous system. But what we're finding out is the role sleep plays in the metabolism makes that function equally as important as restoring our central nervous system. So there's a couple of things that go on when we're sleep deprived. It affects our hormones, affects our insulin sensitivity, affects our gut bacteria. So the first one is the hormones, and there's two of them. There's the leptin hormone, the ghrelin hormone. The leptin hormone is actually produced in our fat cells, and it signals to the body that we've stored enough fat, that we're full, that we can burn calories at a normal rate. And so the other hormone is the ghrelin hormone, and that's in our gut. And so that signals to our brain that we're hungry and we need more food. So of course, when we're sleep deprived, both of these hormones get affected. And so we get an increase in ghrelin, which makes us want more food, signals to the brain we need more food. And then the leptin hormone actually gets decreased. So we're not being told what our body's not telling our brain when we're full. And so that happens during the sleep process. When you're sleep deprived. Another thing that happens is we become really sensitive to the insulin our body produces. And we need that insulin to turn our food into fuel for our body. There was a study done in the Annals of Internal Medicine, And it showed after just 4 nights of being sleep deprived, our insulin sensitivity dropped by 30% in our fat cells. So what this does is it creates a metabolical disorder in our body and can lead to things like type 2 diabetes by not having that insulin working properly. That's one of the things that happens with it. Now, another study was done where 2 groups that were given the same food choices. And so the group that was sleep deprived ate 30% more sweets, salty snacks, and carbs than the people that were getting the adequate amount of sleep. And with that, they were consuming about 300 calories more each day. And to put that in perspective, that's about 10 to 15 pounds a year. So that we can add. Now, just because you're sleep deprived doesn't mean you're absolutely going to gain weight. So I'm not saying that. The University of Chicago actually did a study where they had 2 groups, and both of the groups lost weight. But what they found out was the group that was sleep deprived was losing their weight through muscle, and the people that were getting adequate sleep was losing that weight through their fat. So when you get your adequate amount of sleep and that insulin's working correctly, the weight we're losing is actually in our fat cells. So now the other thing is our gut bacteria. Our gut is like a second brain, and just like our brain in our head, it needs that sleep and that time to restore and rejuvenate. And so when we're not getting adequate sleep, it affects that gut, so we don't absorb the nutrients from our foods that we're eating. So that's where it plays a really big part, because disrupting that gut can really disrupt our whole day in a lot of areas of our life. So if you're getting adequate sleep on a regular basis, you can actually help your body work with you to lose more weight. That makes a huge difference. So Chris is going to tell us about the immune system.
So our immune system is absolutely dependent on our sleep to function at its most optimal levels. There's a reason we get so tired and sleepy when we're sick, and that's because our immune system absolutely needs sleep. And the first area we can observe this is just in the immune system's effectiveness. There was an interesting, if not somewhat depraved study done where several groups of people were put on a sleep schedule, and the researchers shot rhinovirus up their noses. And so rhinovirus is the common cold, essentially. And so what they wanted to do was monitor what the immune system's response was. So they continually took blood, mucus, and saliva levels, and were looking at the concentration of immune cells within those samples. And they also looked to see who got sick versus who didn't. And so the groups who got the most sleep, which was 8 hours, their response was a lot more robust, higher concentrations of immune cells within those samples, and only 18% of the group actually got sick. The group that slept 5 hours, which was the lowest, their concentration of immune cells was much lower, and 50% of them got sick. And so the difference between just 3 hours of sleep was the odds being 1 in 2 to the odds being less than 1 in 5 of actually getting ill. And so they found certain cells are greatly impacted. One of those are the body's natural killer cells, which are one of the more aggressive ones, and they're actually responsible for killing other cells, any sort of invading cells. They've also found that they're really important for prevention of cancer, because they seek out cancer cells and kill them as well. One study showed that just 1 night of 4 hours of sleep reduced our concentrations of natural killer cells by 70%, which for just 1 night of serious sleep deprivation is huge. One point that kind of drives this home is our propensity to get sick when we're traveling, particularly when flying. Most people have observed that they tend to get sick on airplanes. People have always wondered why this is, because airplanes are not the only time we're around large groups of people within small environments. But when thinking about it, when we're traveling, usually we have a lot to take care of before we can actually leave to make sure things run smoothly while we're gone. And sleep is something we usually put off to give us more time to prepare, especially with early morning flights for changing time zones. And we're going to take an early morning flight. And so the reason is not just because we're around sick people, but because we get less sleep and therefore our immune systems are less effective. And another study they did was showing just how sleep affected our response to the flu shot. They also did this with vaccines as well. So they took two groups of people, gave one group an adequate amount of sleep, just between 7 and 8 hours for the week leading up to receiving the flu shot or the vaccine shot. And then the other group they gave with less sleep. And so what they showed was a much more robust reaction to those shots. A group that received 8 hours of sleep had a very robust antibody count created from those shots, where the group that was sleeping less produced less than 50% of the amount of antibodies. And the last thing is inflammation levels. Inflammatory conditions are a big problem nowadays, and sleep can actually impact the inflammation levels within our body. So what they found is there are cells in the body that signal an inflammatory response within the body. And the less sleep you get, the more overreactive these cells are. And so they signal inflammation more often when we don't need it. Inflammation is great when we have wounds or cuts or damage to tissue, but when there's nothing that's actually needed, it's problematic because it can hurt healthy cells and tissues that we actually need. And so now we're going to just kind of go through some other benefits kind of quickly. This is not an exhaustive list, but just for the sake of time, we wanted to clue in or key in on a few factors. So sleep also helps our brain, and we're only going to cover really 2 ways. There's a lot more, but the first one is learning and ability to memorize. So if you get adequate sleep before learning new material, new things, it will increase the amount that you're able to actually retain on a short-term basis. And then getting adequate sleep after you've learned this material the night of and then the nights after will increase how much you actually retain and how much gets moved into your long-term storage. Motor skills are another thing. Everybody's familiar with the idea of muscle memory. You're learning a new skill set, trying out a new activity, and it takes practice before you actually get good or proficient at it. And the thought being, well, we'll just practice and develop that muscle memory. That's not actually the case. It's the brain that really helps us in this area. When we sleep, those new activities that we're trying out, those new motor skills, the brain actually goes through and processes those in a repeated pattern. And what it does is figure out the areas that are rough, and then it actually smooths out those areas. So it's really practice plus a good night's sleep makes perfect. The next area is creativity. This is, I like to think of it as nighttime networking. So we have different stages of sleep, and in those different stages of sleep, various areas of the brain are more active. But there is one stage where the entire brain is active, and it's active in unison. And what's actually happening is a nighttime networking from different regions of the brain, because they're all taking in and processing different information and stimulus throughout the day. And then at nighttime, during that period, they get together and share all those different stimulus and experiences. What this allows us to do is make connections between different things that maybe we normally wouldn't have made. And the result is we're more creative in our problem-solving abilities. The next one is emotion management. Sleep actually plays a large role in our emotions and how we feel. We're much more reactive with less sleep. And the reason being is our amygdala, which is kind of our emotional center within the brain, is much more reactive. It's also more the primal brain, so it's more reactive in general. But our prefrontal cortex acts to kind of regulate and put the brake pedal on the amygdala to a certain extent. But when we don't get enough sleep, the amygdala activity increases and our prefrontal cortex activity decreases. So we don't quite have that check. And it's not necessarily even negative emotions, it's even positive ones that we're more reactive with on all ends of the spectrum. The next way is also just processing of experiences. Sleep can affect how things affect us. Everybody goes through negative points in their life or traumatic events, and getting adequate sleep actually lessens how that impacts us in a negative way. One of those ways is just with general outlook in life. The more sleep you get, the more positive you tend to be. With less sleep, we tend to focus more on negative emotions. It's much harder for us to let those go. Don't need to really go too much into it, but energy and efficiency. I think we all know the less sleep we get, the more tired, groggy we are. We don't perform at higher levels. With adequate sleep, our efficiency goes up. We're able to do a lot more using a lot less energy. It can also affect our reproductive systems, particularly with sex hormones in both males and females. Males that don't get adequate sleep have much less concentrations of testosterone. I think one night of 4 to 5 hours of sleep will actually age a male by 10 years in testosterone levels within the body. For women, less luteinizing hormone and less follicle stimulating hormone, which are both big regulatory factors for the menstrual cycle. Women are also much less likely to get pregnant with less sleep, are more likely to suffer from a miscarriage during the first trimester with inadequate sleep. And so not only that, sleep affects us down at the DNA level. DNA is the blueprint for the body. It's what tells the body how the cells are built, what they look like, and regulate how functions go within the body. Sleep studies have found that inadequate sleep will affect the expression of those genes. It'll overactivate some and underactivate others. 4 nights of inadequate sleep they found so far can alter the expression of up to 771 genes within the body. Some of those are responsible for cardiovascular health, immunity, inflammation levels. And so that's another way, and metabolism, and so that's another way that some of these systems that we've already talked about are affected, because they're actually affected down at the DNA level.
So that's kind of the way that our body responds to being sleep deprived or getting adequate amount of sleeps, kind of the different systems in our body. So now we're going to cover the ways that you can get a better night's sleep, things that you can do yourself. So we're going to cover a sleep schedule, sleep environment, and the sleep routine that you have and how crucial those areas are. Chris.
Okay, so we're going to start with the sleep schedule. So it's a small group, but a show of hands, how many people have a set time that they sleep and then they schedule the rest of their lives around that sleep schedule? Yeah. You won't be shocked to find that that is the norm. And so the idea of the sleep schedule is setting a time for sleep and scheduling everything else around that. And most researchers will say that this is actually the most important thing to help us with sleep, which setting that schedule, it's a little difficult to wrap your head around that, because how does just setting a schedule actually help me sleep? Well, going back to the circadian rhythm, it thrives off consistency, and it influences processes within the body at specific times. through consistent habits within our lives, the circadian rhythm will actually adjust to what we're doing if we stay consistent. So if it knows that there's a particular time that we are going to go to bed, and there's a particular time that we are going to wake up every day, it will set us up for success. And so that's the idea of setting the sleep schedule, because your body will adjust, and you don't have to be quite robotic with it early on. Yes, you have to be consistent so that the body can adjust, but once it's routine, then that gives us the flexibility, because we know the circadian rhythm will be consistent. And even though at times maybe we're not inconsistent because we have social engagements or things that come up, if it is our routine, it won't interfere so much after, and it gives us more flexibility with our scheduling. The next big one is sleep environment, and this is going to, this is more so mainly bedroom, but also just the house in general. The first one we're going to talk about is the biggest one, and it's light. And so this is a map of essentially light pollution, and so the amount of light in the sky at different periods. So the first one being 1950, the second one being in the middle of the 70s, the third one 1997, and the last one is where we're projected to be at 2025. Bless you. If you look at that map, there's not a dark spot in Tennessee already, and it's actually going to be much worse by 2025. It's weird to think, how can light be such a huge impact? And it really is. They've kind of measured the impact of light on our circadian rhythms, and it's actually set our biological clocks back by 2 to 3 hours. So we're on East Coast time, we're operating on East Coast time, but our body is operating on Pacific time. And as we had mentioned with the suprachiasmatic nucleus, it is sensing the light coming through the optic nerves, and that's what's making its determination as far as whether it's day or nighttime. So we're getting to nighttime, we're still getting light, and our brain still thinks it's daytime. So there's a few things, we can't get rid of that, but there's some ways that we can manage that. One of the biggest issues is LED lights right now, because LED lights, while great and while very efficient, they're very high in the blue wave spectrum of light, and that's what our eyes react to the most. And so one of the things we can do is almost have two separate lighting systems within the house. So at nighttime, you're going to want things to be much dimmer. A lot of brands have actually developed nighttime lights, and so what these have is a lot less blue light and a lot more red light, which we don't react to nearly as much. The other big issue is electronic devices, particularly those with screens. I think 90%, estimated 90% of the population are using some sort of electronic device with a screen before 1 hour before bed. This affects not only our ability to fall asleep, but it affects our quality of sleep. We do not get as deep a sleep with these lights. So there's a few things you can do. You can try to limit. Some people are using this for work or things they have to finish throughout the day. So there's actually technology which are blue blockers that will actually block out that blue light. A lot of various devices have those built into the settings these days, so you can actually just go into the settings and set your blue filters, how much blue light you want filtered out, and at what times. And if that doesn't work for you, there's also blue blocker lights or sunglasses. So you can purchase these sunglasses and wear them at night, and that will filter out the blue light. Within the bedroom itself, you would want to maybe turn around any electronic devices if you can't remove them from the room. You don't want any lights hitting you, and you can also put up blackout blinds, and so that will prevent any outside light from getting into the bedroom, because it's really important while you're sleeping for it to be dark. And then so the next three, not as important as light, but still very beneficial for us. First one is temperature. Our bodies like it cooler when we sleep. Now we have central heating and air, and we don't really get the change of temperature before we lived, indoors that we got outside. And so there are sensors in the brain that actually sense a drop in temperature, and those also signal to the SCN, which then signals to the pineal gland to release melatonin. So by dropping the temperature, we can stimulate more melatonin secretion within the body. The next one is noise. This affects people in different ways. Some people can make it harder to fall asleep, others harder to stay asleep. And even if noise doesn't necessarily wake us throughout the night, it can still jolt the brain, and so it can affect the depth of our sleep. Some people use white noise machines, which doesn't really vibe with some people. There's also really cheap earplugs that you can put in, and they've actually made not necessarily comfortable, but you don't actually even notice. So that is something. And the last thing is comfort. Bedroom should be comfortable. You should be comfortable there. The more comfortable we are, the better we sleep. So if there's any clutter, feel free to get rid of it, and then just make your bedroom your sanctuary.
So next we're going to talk about sleep routine and how crucial the sleep routine is to our nighttime. After we have a full day of work, do activities after work, do all of our running around, sleep should just come naturally, right? Unfortunately, it doesn't, and that's because of the way we're treated sleep. We rush to get up in the morning, we rush to work, we rush to meetings, we rush to do our errands, we rush to pick up the kids from school, we rush to get dinner done, and then we try to rush to sleep. And unfortunately, sleep doesn't work that way. The biggest thing about sleep is that it needs to be a calming, relaxing environment for us to get that good quality night's sleep. And by taking the time and coming up with a sleep routine, it can be the difference between a restorative, rejuvenating, restful, peaceful night's sleep, or just wasting 8 hours till we get up like zombies again and start running around. So, what does a sleep routine really look like? Well, the biggest thing, first off, is just it's a time of winding down from the day, kind of quieting our mind, relaxing our muscles, relaxing our bodies. But the biggest thing is what Chris covered first was the sleep schedule. Setting that goal can be the one thing you can do starting tonight that can make that biggest difference. It's just hitting that time every single day of going to bed at the same time can really transform the way we live, our quality of life, and everything. And one of the ways to do that is the second thing you talked about was the sleep environment. Doing that sets us up for that routine, gets our body used to going, okay, it's time to start winding down and stuff like that. Just having that temperature, lower lights, different things like that. And then the last thing is creating a routine that will help you relax your mind and your body. So we're going to cover a lot of different aspects. This is a little bit more of an interactive section of what we're going to be talking about today. But this is where we're going to give you some ideas that you can add into that routine. So one of the first things I thought about when I was doing this was how long should the routine be? And so Shelby Harris, who is the director of Sleep-Wake Disorder Center in upstate New York, she was saying that a good sleep routine should be 30 to 45 minutes. Optimal sleep routine would be an hour. So an hour before you're going to bed to start that process of quieting down. But if you don't currently have a sleep routine, a lot of times that could be overwhelming, or we could be thinking, how do I even have time to incorporate that? I barely have time to just get into bed now. Well, just taking 5 to 10 minutes to start is a great place where you can get going with this and start to feel and see the benefits with just 5 to 10 minutes. And when you start doing that, you'll actually fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. So there's a lot of different things you can add into that routine. A hot bath. You can tap into your higher power through prayer. Brew some tea. Just take a mental vacation for 5 minutes before you go to bed, kind of clearing out your mind. Getting intimate is also can be another part of your sleep routine. Aromatherapy has shown great benefits in that with scents like, or oils like lavender, rose, sandalwood are all great aromatherapies. Another one is just deep breathing. Just either sitting on the edge of the bed or just taking a few minutes to stand somewhere or sit somewhere and just do some deep breathing. It can be a form of meditation, but it doesn't have to be. Just that deep breathing can make a difference. And then we're going to touch a little bit more on stretching and meditation. Those are two areas that have shown to have health benefits beyond just that quiet time of 5 minutes. So the first one we're going to be talking about is stretching. And stretching doesn't have to be a full yoga session. It doesn't have to be a long period of time. It can be a short routine that's just 3 to 5 minutes that can just get you started and get your body kind of winding down, quieting down. It could also be a form of meditation. There was a study done with some group of folks that were over the age of 55, and they were all having nocturnal leg cramps at night, or nocturnal leg cramps. And so they did this study. One group was just stretching their legs, the other group wasn't doing any stretches. And just after 6 weeks, the group that was doing the stretches, it found that the amount of cramps they were having decreased by 95%. And the few cramps they were still having, the severity decreased by 95%. So that stretching can make a huge difference for you. And I'm guilty just as much as anybody of not doing the stretching as much as I should on a regular basis. But when I do it, I'm reminded how much a part it should be, or how much it should be a part of my daily life. And I keep reminding myself, hey, just taking a few minutes a day can make a big difference. And then the director of a micro stretching clinic in Vancouver, he teaches all of his patients to do stretching before they go to sleep, because he said it helps them to start to recover and rejuvenate their bodies before they even head hits the pillow. So it really can make a huge, huge difference. So as far as the interactive part of things, what I wanted to do is just walk you through a quick stretching routine. It's one that I found has been real effective. A lot of times we keep tension and stuff in our neck and our shoulders. That's where it lands for a lot of us. So so Chris is going to be my model and kind of lead y'all along here as we go and stuff like that. But what I'd like y'all to do is sit with both feet flat on the floor, kind of sit up and stuff like that. And I'll just kind of walk you through some of the steps here and that. So we're going to start off the stretching routine by taking our chin down to our chest. Just breathe slowly and calmly, and then lift up and look straight up to the ceiling. Just keeping that breathing going, and then look down, back chin to your chest, slowly and gently. And this is just about the count of 5, and then go back up, and look back up to the ceiling one more time. And then you can come back to the center. And now we're going to take our chin over to one shoulder. Just let it hang, sit there for a second. Now let's take it over to the other shoulder. Just letting it relax, let that tension go from the neck and the shoulders. And then we're going to move our chin back over to the other side. Just keeping your breathing nice and steady, calm. And then reverse it one more time with your head back over to your other shoulder. Okay, and now we're going to bring our head back to the center. Now you're just going to take your ear and drop it over to one shoulder. Now as your chin goes down to your chest, give me a half a head roll over to your other shoulder. Hold it there for a moment. chin back down over to the other side. Just feeling that tension out of your neck. And then we're going to reverse it back over to the other side. And then switch one last time back over to the other side. Okay, now bring your head back to the center. Now we're going to take the ear down to one of the shoulders again. Alright. Now you can just let your ear sit here, or you can take your hand, put it on your head, and gently pull that. Don't yank it, but just gently pull that ear closer to your shoulder. Letting everything just go on the other side. If you want to deepen this stretch, take your arm and kind of wrap it around the back of your other arm around the back, giving you a little bit more space between that neck and your shoulder. And usually hold this to about a count of 15 to 20. So now we'll take the head and chin and we'll kind of angle it in towards our armpit. And then move your hand to the back of your head and gently pull your head down. You should feel the stretch go to the back of your neck and down your back. Holding that stretch there just for a moment. Okay, and now you can let everything go. Bring your head back to the center. Now we're going to bring our ear over to the other side. Work that other side. Again, you could leave it here, or you could use your hand to kind of give you a little bit more of a stretch. Pulling that ear gently closer to your other shoulder. Also deepening the stretch by bringing your arm around your back, giving you a little bit more space between your shoulder and your ear. Now we're going to bring that chin in towards our armpit or head down, and move our hand to the back of our head and gently pull it in, giving that stretch to the back side of our neck, that side. Just holding it for a few more moments. Great. Now release, come back to the center. Kind of shake your arms, just kind of loosen everything up, and we've got one more stretch here. What we're going to do is kind of take a deep breath, and as we inhale, tense your shoulders and everything towards your neck. So let's inhale, hold it for a few seconds, and then exhale. Just let it all out at once. You can let a big old sigh there at the end. So we're going to inhale one more time, shoulders up, 2, 3, exhale, let it all out. Great, and one last time, inhale, and then let those shoulders drop in that exhale. So you can feel where that just kind of opens up your shoulders, your neck, just kind of gives you a little bit of a loosening up in there. And really, that's a great routine, but if you have another spot on your body that's more tense, more, more aggravated, you could stretch those areas. It's just more about calming the mind, calming the muscles, and stuff like that when you're doing that stretch routine. So now we're going to talk a little bit about meditation. Like I said, stretching could be a form of meditation, but it's not the only type of meditation. There's actually tons of different ways that you can do meditation, and several techniques. And so the biggest thing is finding the technique or the meditation that is right for you, because it's so personalized, it's so individualized. There's no perfect routine for everybody, or nothing that works for everybody out there. So you really got to go through the different ones and find the ones that works for you. So I'm going to quickly touch on a couple of different ones, kind of give you an idea of the different types of routine or different types of meditations. I'll give you a resource at the end that'll kind of cover them all that you can look up and go more in detail. The biggest thing with meditation is it's done in literally every community around the world. And the origin of it is kind of hard to pinpoint, because it's really the origins before even the written word, dates back to cave paintings and stuff like that. So, so it's really something that's been a part of the world's culture for as long as we can trace it back to. So to start off, I just hit on the Buddhist meditation techniques, It's more the Zen, mindful, loving kindness types of meditation. And you'll see that some of these things transfer through the different meditations. This is kind of some of the origin or foundation of these different techniques. So you got the Buddhist technique. The next one is the Chinese meditation technique. This one involves a little bit more movement, a lot of times energy, like the Qigong, the Taoist meditation. Actually, they used to do some of these meditations before they would go to war back centuries ago. The Hindu meditation techniques are more your chanting or mantra, even like the stereotype of Om can be a very relaxing technique. So that comes out of the Hindu meditation techniques. Transcendental meditation, even yoga kind of has its origin in the Hindu meditation techniques. The other one is Christian meditation. It's spiritual. Again, the spirituality transcends through a lot of them. But the Christian is usually you're either talking with God or focused with God or meditating on His Word. Can all be a form of meditation. Some Christians don't like to classify it as meditation. It can be prayer. It's really whatever makes you feel the most comfortable with that. Sufi meditation is actually a Muslim meditation. It was kind of grounded in the focused. Now again, it kind of transcends because a lot of these meditations you'll find a sense of focus through a lot of the different meditations, but that was really prevalent in the Muslim meditation. And then the last one is the guided meditation. And that's really the youngest, has the briefest history, even though it's many years, is the guided meditation. That's where an individual will lead a group or a single person through a meditation. And the thing about that, when I got started with meditation years ago, or about a year ago, I really struggled with guided meditation because I was trying to find that voice that really connected with me, that didn't really irritate me, but just really connected on that tonal level. So I could relax. And then also, what were they talking about while they were going through the guided meditation made a big difference. So I actually kind of scrapped the guided meditation early on and more focused on just doing the breathing and focused on my breath as a form of meditation. And then as I talked to more people about it and they suggested more guided meditations, I was able to find a couple that I really liked the tonality, what they were saying, and the length. I found this great one young lady does. She calls it 3x3. And that's like a 3-minute guided meditation. She has one on sleep, she has one on general relaxation, and a couple of different areas and stuff like that. So if you're doing a guided meditation or looking into the guided meditation, give a couple of things a try till you find the one that kind of resonates with you. And that. So I have gotten asked, since we've been talking about the sleep talk, like I've tried meditation, I don't know if I'm doing it right, not really sure about it. So I wanted to incorporate a little bit of it today to just show you, to give you an idea of the meditation. And what that experience is like. Because the biggest thing is there is no right way you can't do it wrong. And that, because it is so personal and it's so individualized. So if I can have y'all all sit up again with your feet flat on the ground. You can put your hands on your legs, just whatever makes you most comfortable sitting there. And you can close your eyes during it, or you keep your eyes open. Either way, a lot of times I'll close my eyes. And we're going to start off with a really deep breath, and we'll end with a really deep breath. And then in between, just keep your breath moving in and out at a regular, comfortable pace. So here we go. We'll begin, and everybody, take a deep breath in and hold for a few seconds. And then exhale through your nose. And inhale again. You should feel that breath go through your nose into your lungs. And it should come back out throat, out through your nose. So on your next breath, what I'd like you to do is focus on the muscles in your scalp and just feel those muscles relax as on your exhale. Now on your next breath, put your focus on the muscles in your neck and your shoulders. And as you exhale, just let them relax. On your next breath, focus on the muscles in your arms, your chest, and your stomach. And as you exhale, just feel them relax. Now on your next breath, as you come in, focus on the muscles in your legs, even the muscles in your feet, your toes. On the exhale, let it all relax. As you're just calmly moving through the breath, just feel the calmness and the relief. If there's any other area of tension in your body, just on your next breath, focus in and let that tension go and relax. Now on your next breath, let's make it a deep breath in and hold and exhale. Now as you come back, you can open up your eyes. Right. You feel that difference? Now, just in a few minutes, and that was only a 2 or 3 minute meditation, or probably a minute and a half meditation there. But you can see that calm feeling and stuff like that. When you're laying down to go to bed, that'll put you in a position where you're going to go to sleep faster and really sleep longer in that. So the resource I wanted to point out was, it's called liveanddare.com. They have meditation for beginners, a section called meditation for beginners. They also have a section on the types of meditation. So they go more in depth into the ones that I hit on, the different types that I hit on. They actually have 23 types of meditation. So it's a lot of reading, but it's great reading. It really does a good job. And what it does is they give you the origin and the meaning of the meditation. Then they give you how it works or what you're supposed to be doing during the meditation. And then the author gives a section, is it right for you? Like what you can expect during a meditation and that. And when I was getting into it, it really explained a lot of things and helped me kind of get through some of the stuff that was stereotypes that were in my heads and different things like that. So it's a wonderful resource. So now as we wrap things up, Chris is going to talk about how acupuncture can actually help with sleep.
Thank you, Michael. The meditation was great, by the way. I wish we would have done that at the beginning. I feel completely relaxed right now. So acupuncture is beneficial for sleep, and actually how it helped with sleep actually was kind of my introduction to acupuncture, actually through my mother, who sought acupuncture use for low back pain. She would throw her back out once a year and suffered from back pain in between. So she went for that, and her back pain went away, and she kept going back because of how she slept and how it helped her manage her stress levels with running a company. She was always focused on sleep. Sleep routine was important. She got her 8 hours no matter what. But the depth that she slept after treatment was very noticeable to her. So she continued to go back for that. One of the ways it helps is it's actually very calming. You wouldn't think needles being stuck into the body could be a calming activity, but it actually stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest. So it's very calming, and that can help with the sleep. And it's been shown in studies to be beneficial for insomnia and also insomnia-like symptoms where you may not necessarily have insomnia, but there is difficulty with falling asleep, staying asleep. It's been shown that it can actually increase melatonin secretion and production within the body. And so depending on what you're experiencing, that will kind of inform the treatment, the points that we select, and the channels that we use for treatment. The great thing about it is it can really build momentum for you. Even if we're not, I've noticed in my practice treating people, like my mother, we were focused on one thing and they received benefit in sleep. And so doing acupuncture as well as taking some of these things into account, making some changes, acupuncture can kind of help make that a less difficult transition for you. And then once you set everything else up, you'll, with the help of acupuncture, then you won't need outside intervention to help with your sleep.
Okay, and massage also has tremendous amount of benefits for sleep. One of the things was this article on hyperarousal and insomnia in the State of Science that was published in the Sleep Medicine Reviews, and it talked about how insomnia could occur because of the physiological hyperarousal that happens in our body. And this happens where it will kick our brain into an overdrive, giving us a non-stop dialogue that goes on, increasing excessive worry, over anxiousness, and different things like that. And a massage can really interrupt this vicious, self-perpetuating cycle that comes on that a lot of times we don't even realize we're in. So that's a big area where massage can help. Another thing that massage causes is the body to, when you get a massage, it causes two main responses. One is the relaxation response. Most people are familiar with that. But if you're in that hypoarousal overdrive state, it can actually involuntarily slow down your nervous system, which will slow down that state. The other state is the mechanical response, and that's where if you're in, like if you have a pain in a certain part of your body and you get that relief or that headache relief, dropping your or decreasing your blood pressure and different things like that can really either eliminate that pain or lessen that pain so that that's not an issue when you're starting to, when you're trying to get to sleep. Now, another part of massage is when you touch certain pain receptors, pressure points in the body while you're doing massage, it affects the vagus nerve, which runs from our brainstem down to our colon. So it's our longest cranial nerve and has the biggest effect on our body. So by doing that, it can help relax even some of our vital organs in our body. So the last thing was I had a client that she hadn't slept in months, and she was trying a number of different things, medications, stuff like that. She came and saw me, and after our first session together, when she came back, she reported that she had slept 2 nights straight all the way through. And she was so excited. So we had another session, and after that one, she had 4 nights of consecutive sleep without interruption. And she was so excited she couldn't remember the last time that had happened. So I can't guarantee that with just one session I was going to get the results. But it was really, it's such a pleasure and such a passion to work with people and to help them and give them that kind of relief. And if it doesn't get that exact results to start off with, it's a great step in the right direction to helping you get a better night's sleep and start, and kind of gives you a head start on that sleep routine. So lastly,
okay, so in conclusion, thank you guys again for coming out and being here with us this morning, taking some time out of your weekend. Sleep is very important. We covered some of the areas that it helps us with, but that list was not exhaustive. And so it doesn't matter whether you have, you know, actual health goals or if you just actually want to feel better. Sleep can help with that. And just the benefits are so wide-ranging. So we just wanted to take some time out to tell you how it can benefit you and just some ways that you can help yourselves, as well as ways that we can help y'all as well. So thank you.
Thank you.